What's up, y'all? It's Adam with Liber & Co. If you're new to the world of crafting cocktails at home, look no further. I'm gonna show you everything you need to know to look like you've been bartending for years. In the process, you'll also learn how to make 7 of the most quintessential and popular cocktails ever created. All the tools you need to make professional grade, bar quality cocktails at home can be had for less than 75 bucks. Now the booze can get as pricey as your wallet will allow, but check out our series on best bottles under 30 bucks to find some really awesome, high quality and high value picks. So the way this will work is I'll introduce bar tools and equipment as we go through these recipes. And I want to start off with one of the earliest known and most popular cocktails in the world that requires very little from our toolkit here, and that is the Old Fashioned. This OG classic cocktail has made a huge resurgence in the last several years and is one of the most popular cocktails at bars today. It's absolutely delicious and incredibly simple to make. To get started with this Old Fashioned, you'll need whiskey, sugar, bitters, a rocks glass, a bar spoon, and a jigger for measuring. The jigger is a critical bartending tool. The most tried and true recipes across history require measuring your ingredients, and precision really is key. A jigger with clear fluid ounce markings is gonna make measuring your cocktails a lot easier and make your cocktails taste a whole lot better. Now there are a lot of choices in the world of jiggers. We use this very straightforward tin jigger that is included in our essential bar kit linked in the description below. It's a straightforward example that covers the measurements you really need. Pretty much every cocktail under the sun can be made using measurements of a 1/4 ounce, a 1/2 ounce, 3/4 ounce, and 1 ounce. So even if this jigger isn't for you, make sure you find a jigger that has these clear demarcations. A proper bar spoon is also a very helpful tool to have on hand. A bar spoon is basically just a very long spoon with a kind of small flat bowl at the end. The unique design and shape of this spoon is very useful in making cocktails for a couple of different reasons. We'll start with the most obvious. Stirring is a great way to mix, chill, and dilute cocktails, all critical steps along the journey to cocktail bliss. But a bar spoon can also be a helpful measuring tool. A lot of recipes call for a bar spoon measure to be added as part of the recipe, often as a float at the end on top of the drink. Usually a bar spoon is something like 1/8 ounce, and the spoon helps you dose out this amount accurately and precisely every time. For the sugar component in this Old Fashioned recipe, some people like to use a sugar cube, which they'll muddle in with the bitters in the bottom of the glass at the beginning of building their drink. But if it can be helped, we highly recommend using an already liquefied sweetener. The good news is that simple syrup is super easy to make at home. We recommend a 2-to-1 sugar to water ratio. Simply add 2 parts of sugar to 1 part water, boil those together until the sugar is dissolved, let it cool, you're good to go. That should keep in the fridge for about a week. So without further ado, let's make this Old Fashioned. I'll add a large format ice cube to my rocks glass, but whatever ice is in your freezer is gonna do absolutely fine. Next, we'll add a 1/4 ounce of our simple syrup, 2 ounces of the whiskey of your choice, and 2 to 3 dashes of aromatic bitters. And we'll give this a stir. For a finishing step, let's turn to another great piece of equipment to have on hand in your bar, the vegetable peeler. Use a peeler to make an orange peel garnish. Pro tip, gently folding the peel over the top of your cocktail will release tons of beautiful aromatic orange oil over the surface of your cocktail. If you're new to the Old Fashioned, we recommend starting out with bourbon, but the real fun starts when you start mixing up your base spirits. Aged rum for a rum Old Fashioned, or even aged tequila for a Oaxacan Old Fashioned. Next up, another classic, the Negroni. Now normally for this cocktail, we would turn to our mixing glass. And there are a lot of beautiful examples out there if you're looking to expand your home bar toolkit. But for the purposes of this video, we're gonna go ahead and stick with the base of our 2-piece shaker tin, which is gonna do the job beautifully. The Negroni is an Italian cocktail, and it's a classic for good reason. It's super simple to build, it's got a beautiful complex flavor profile that some describe as even being a little bit medicinal tasting, but it's just got a certain allure that I know you'll love. So as you can see, we've gone ahead and swapped out our shaker tin base for this clear glass pint glass, just so that you can see the recipe being built. So to get started, we'll add 1 ounce of gin to our shaker tin. Next, we'll add 1 ounce of Campari, which is an Italian bitter liqueur. And finally, we'll add 1 ounce of sweet or red vermouth. Let's add some ice to our shaker tin and give this a stir using our bar spoon. We want to stir this for a good 15 to 20 seconds until the tin is ice cold and everything is well mixed and we've achieved a little bit of dilution in the cocktail. So it's here where I'm gonna introduce another critical bartending tool, and that is the Hawthorne strainer. So the Hawthorne strainer is designed to be placed right over the top of your mixing tin. Not only will the Hawthorne strainer hold back solids like ice while allowing your cocktail to flow through, but its coiled design will actually help to give a last dose of aeration to your cocktail, which is really good for waking up those flavors and aromas on a final pass into your glass. Just like with our old fashioned, a classic garnish of a Negroni is a beautiful expressed orange peel. All right, now let's put the second half of our shaker tin to work and make a daiquiri. Everybody's heard of the daiquiri. It's a Cuban cocktail, and it's made using 3 very simple ingredients that you should have on hand: lime, rum, and sugar. But this is a perfect example of a cocktail that, when done properly and with good technique, really does amount to something greater than the sum of its parts. To get started, let's grab our 2-piece shaker tin. I like to work out of the smaller half when building my drink. We'll start off by adding half an ounce of a rich simple syrup directly to our shaker tin. Or better yet, use our classic gum syrup for a nice textural enhancement. Next, we'll add 2 ounces of a white rum. And you can play around with all kinds of different rums here until you dial it in to exactly the recipe you like. Finally, we'll add 3/4 of an ounce of fresh lime juice. Meet the juice press. This is another critical piece to the bartender's toolkit. Unless you have Dwayne Johnson's forearms or you can tear a phone book in half with your bare hands, we highly recommend having one of these juice presses on hand. This is the most efficient way to extract juice from your lemons and limes, and it's gonna speed up the process while yielding a lot more juice. The flavor and aroma of fresh juices cannot be matched by bottled product that invariably contains preservatives and has a funky smell, and it's super easy to throw in fresh lemons and limes with your regular weekly grocery basket. Now let's go ahead and add a cup of ice to our shaker tin and place the other half over the top of this bottom half. When placing this top tin over the bottom tin, I like to put it at a slight angle where one edge is straight and the other edge is at an angle. And that makes it easier to form a seal when I'm shaking, and also easier to break that seal when the time comes to separate my tins. And don't worry so much about leakage here. The cold will cause these tins to compress into each other and form a nice tight seal when shaking. Now to separate the tins, let's push the top tin in the opposite direction from the direction it's currently leaning. Pull up at the same time. Now we'll place our Hawthorne strainer on top and strain directly into a coupe. Grab your kitchen knife and cut a lime wheel for garnish. Fresh lime and the complex sugarcane notes from the rum and a kiss of sweetness come together perfectly. The Mojito is a highball style cocktail, and it uses the exact same ingredients as the previous drink we did, the daiquiri, but it adds mint and bubbles for a nice aromatic impact. To start, we'll add half an ounce of a rich simple syrup or our classic gum syrup, along with 5 to 6 fresh mint leaves to the bottom of our shaker tin. If you have a muddler, you can definitely muddle the mint and syrup together to make a nice mint infused syrup at the bottom of your drink. We don't think a muddler is a critical bar tool, but it's definitely one to have if you're looking to expand your repertoire. Otherwise, you can shake this cocktail extra hard with ice, and the ice will pulverize and break up the mint and impart that flavor. Next up, we'll add 3/4 of an ounce of fresh lime juice and 2 ounces of light rum. Now let's shake this up and double strain it into a highball glass using a fine mesh strainer. A fine mesh strainer like this one is wonderful to have in your bar kit. It'll catch any larger ingredients like the mint, as well as ice shards that slip through the Hawthorne strainer and change the texture of your cocktail. Finally, let's top with club soda. This will take 2 to 3 ounces of club soda. We'll garnish this beautiful cocktail with a fresh sprig of mint. This truly is one of those classic cocktails that's almost universally loved, especially in warmer weather. Now we'll leave the Caribbean and head for the Big Easy and make a New Orleans classic, the Sazerac. Today we're gonna build a split base version of this spirit-forward cocktail. We're gonna go with 1 ounce each of rye whiskey and brandy. It also calls for a bar spoon measure of absinthe, and the 1/4 ounce of Demerara Gum Syrup and 3 dashes of Peychaud's bitters really tie this cocktail together in a beautiful way. We're gonna get started by rinsing a chilled coupe with a bar spoon of absinthe. That's just as simple as coating the sides like so. Then we're gonna add the rest of the ingredients to our shaker tin or mixing glass and give it a good 20 seconds stir. We wanna make sure everything gets well mixed, chilled, and is properly diluted. Now we'll use our Hawthorne strainer to strain into our chilled and rinsed coupe. The Sazerac really is beautiful in its complexity and balance. It's wonderful for special occasions or celebrations or as just a nightcap. For our next cocktail, we're headed back to the tropics, and more specifically, the mid-century American tiki craze. We're gonna make the Mai Tai. The Mai Tai cocktail calls for almond orgeat syrup, and we happen to make a killer version. Orgeat really is the critical ingredient in a classic Mai Tai. Ours is made using a base of custom roasted California almonds, and it imparts such a unique flavor that you cannot get anywhere else. If you find that the Mai Tai is your cocktail, we highly recommend figuring out a way to crush up some ice at home. Some refrigerators come with a crushed ice setting, or you can use a Lewis bag and a mallet, but that crushed ice really is transformational in a lot of cocktails. Okay, enough about ice, let's turn to our ingredients. This is a straightforward shaken cocktail. So we're gonna add everything to a shaker tin, add ice, and then shake for a good 20 seconds. Now let's fetch our rocks glass from the freezer, strain this cocktail, and garnish with a mint sprig and a fresh lime wheel. And finally, what would this video be without the margarita? The margarita is deservedly one of the most popular cocktails of all time. First things first, take whatever margarita mix you've been using, throw it away. Just trash it, just. Just dump it out. It's not hard to make an authentic margarita at home, and it's gonna taste infinitely better this way. The margarita I'm gonna show you today is a 4-ingredient cocktail. It calls for tequila, fresh lime juice, orange liqueur, and a little bit of syrup. Let's get started by prepping our rocks glass. To do this, we'll take a lime wedge and run it over the rim of the glass to moisten the edge. Next, we'll gently dip and roll the edge of the glass through our salt to make sure it sticks. Now just set that glass into the freezer while you build your drink. This is another classic shaken cocktail. So we're gonna start by adding ½ an ounce of our classic gum syrup to our shaker tin. Next, we'll add ½ an ounce of orange liqueur, 1 ounce of fresh lime juice, and 2 ounces of tequila. For this recipe, we're gonna use a Blanco or unaged tequila. Now let's add ice, shake vigorously for 10 to 15 seconds, and then strain into a rocks glass over ice. The traditional garnish here is just a lime wedge for an extra squeeze midway through your drink. And there you have it, a real authentic margarita that tastes at least as good as the $10 cocktail from your local Mexican restaurant. With the tools and techniques that we've covered in this video, you really are equipped to make some of the most iconic, best tasting cocktails right at home. For more cocktail tips and recipes, be sure to subscribe and check out more of our YouTube videos. Cheers.